I hope I don't get into hot water with this one. I feel like that's what I say before I start. It's like grenade into the room, whatever. Hello, my name is Andrew Morgan Smith, and I want to talk to you today about college. And do you need to go to college? Like, what's the deal with all that? Let me preface this by saying I'm talking to people who have had some comp experience, have some musical theory training, who's asking themselves, do I want to go to college to be a film composer, or do I want to go and pursue higher education at like NYU or USC to get a master's degree? So probably like a lot of you, I was kind of told, oh, well, you want a good job, you want to have a career, you want to be able to do stuff, make sure you go to college. College always pays more, blah, 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 blah. Good work, good job, blah, blah, blah. And for a lot of jobs, I can say, yeah, maybe like a lot of white collar jobs, yeah, go to college. You need the training to be able to do this. But for arts, it's a bit of a gray area. I have a double concentration in film composition and music media, which is like mixing and music production and scoring and like this kind of amalgamation of stuff. And now that I've worked in the industry, I can kind of sort through what was valuable about going to college and what wasn't. So before you go throwing yourself into tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, I think it's important that we're all realistic about what college is good for and what it's not so good for. So that way, if you decide to go, you have your eyes open. There are definitely some pros to going to college. Some people really need the deadlines and the class structure to help them learn new concepts and to deal with how to deal with new deadlines, and giving them a goal of you need to write music every week for your composition class. Also, if you're not really familiar with a lot of composing before college, you can learn a lot of concepts in college. Orchestration, you can learn about music history. You get exposed to a lot of different styles of music and ideas that will help you and inform you as you move forward in your film composition process. Here's a big one. Colleges have resources that you don't have as an individual, especially at 18. Depending on the college, they have recording spaces, they have halls, they have musicians, they have orchestras, they have equipment, they have all these things that an 18-year-old won't have access to. So that can be a really useful thing. Another thing it does is gives you a semi-professional environment that allows you to reach out to professionals. So you can reach out and say,
hey, John, my name's Andrew Smith. I'm going to college for being a film composer. Can I pick your brain about something?
And a lot of times professionals say, yeah, if they can swing it, they'll try and help, they'll answer questions, and you get a little leeway, like, oh, you're not good enough to be a professional, like maybe your product isn't good enough, but you're still learning. You're not presenting yourself. If I was an 18-year-old and I went out and said,
oh, I've written a piece of music, I'm a film composer,
then people look at you differently whenever you're presenting yourself as a professional versus a college student learning to be a professional. And then obviously a well-connected school can sometimes mean a job placement after, but that's not for everything. That really depends on the school. Some schools have absolutely garbage after graduation support, and others are really good. Like there are composers who will only hire assistants from USC because they went through that program and they know specifically, okay, these people know XYZ, and when I hire them, they'll be able to do XYZ. That's something to consider. Does the program you're looking at have any kind of support after the fact? And now we come to the cons of college, which are very real. So the first big one is debt. Do you want to saddle yourself with a ton of money in debt for a degree that doesn't necessarily have a huge success rate? Do you want to saddle yourself in debt for a degree that may or may not guarantee you a job? That's a very important question to ask. I have friends who have the equivalent of house payments for student loans. Really think about that. I know like student debt seems like such an amorphous, really far off thing whenever you're 18, but it is very real.
By the way, I agreed to give them $120,000 when I was 17 years old with no attorney present. That's illegal. They tricked me.
I once pitched a friend, instead of going to USC, he should take some private lessons, hire an orchestra, hire a real mixer, hire a real orchestrator, and just like get all of his studio set up instead of spending the money to go to USC. Just like put it into a demo and doing all this stuff. I was like, what if you did that instead of going to USC? And then he went to USC, and then he's like the most successful person I personally know from USC. So that kind of doesn't prove my point. Another big problem, especially in a lot of undergrad programs, you have teachers teaching film composition who've never scored a project, are only very theoretical in how they talk about film composition. That's not necessarily bad. Maybe they spend a ton of time analyzing every composition they're teaching, and not every composer who works as a composer is a good teacher. That being said, there is a bit of a disconnect between teaching just the concept of composition and film scoring and actually doing it and meeting deadlines and working in that industry. Another thing to keep in mind is no one can really teach you how to compose. People can give you tools to learn how to compose. So you can be taught orchestration, which is super important. You can be taught how other composers conceptualize and visualize their pieces, which are not bad things to learn. But at the end of the day, all this doesn't matter if you don't take the time to sit down and learn how you like to write and learn how you need to churn stuff out. Many colleges are also kind of out of date. They may not know what the current job situation is in your industry, because even if they worked in the film industry 10 years ago, technology is completely different than it was 10 years ago. They may have an idea of, okay, this is how things work, this is how things generally are supposed to move, but they may not have an idea of what you would be going through when you get out of college now. Another thing that may be out of date is their studio equipment. So a microphone is a microphone, and generally if it works, it's fine. That's great. That'll be good enough for whatever you're going to use it for. But if their scoring setup is 10 years old and they're using the oldest form of Logic and they're using the oldest form of samples they can find, then that's not necessarily the most valuable use of your time. And obviously one of those things is you're going to be splitting your time between a lot of different things, especially in undergrad. So in undergrad programs, you're going to have to learn a lot of different things. You're not just going to be learning music production, which does make you a more well-rounded musician, but like you may have to take astronomy, maybe a more well-rounded person, but 2 credit hours that you're not going to get back of your life. The last thing that's really important is the program will not get you work. It's not their job. You'll still have to do the networking. You'll still have to be meeting people, meeting directors. You'll probably have to be working to make a demo. You'll probably still have to be doing all these things. Just going through the motions of checking the boxes for your curriculum will not make you a film composer, or even a composer if you're just in a composition course. Let's talk about some alternatives. Like, what if instead of going to a master's in film scoring, what if you went to film school and then you network with all these filmmakers who are in film school, and you'd be the only composer probably in film school? At the end of the day, directors and producers and actors want to talk to people who can communicate with them. And what better way to communicate with them than through the medium they're actually talking about? It's a given also to get hands-on experience when you can. Work in a composer studio. Do whatever you can to actually work on projects. Also, maybe try a less traditional approach. What if you did private lessons with an orchestrator or a composer and you studied, especially if you're a self-motivating person? Also, there's other resources online that can allow you to have a glimpse into this world. So just like I'm doing this, there's Anne-Kathrin has some great videos. Junkie XL has some videos where he walks through his process. Daniel James over at Hybrid 2, he's very open about what he does and what his process is. And there are probably thousands more that are all just as valuable. Yeah, maybe we don't replace regular education, but all those people I just listed have had more experience than most undergrad film composition teachers. At the end of the day, I'm not anti-college. I just think that we need to be more honest about what you're going to get out of college. And I think college is what eventually allowed me to get to where I am today. But if you're going to go to college, you need to take all those resources we talked about and bend them to your will. You need to take all those resources and make an amazing demo. Buy the orchestra beer and pizza and get them to record your music so you can hear it live and you have a good recording of your pieces. I cannot tell you how many colleges, for some reason, don't encourage their students to record their music live, which is bizarre. Use their halls, use their studios. If the teacher doesn't get you the info in class, push them to get the info. Reach out to people, ask questions. Push, because that's what you're gonna have to do in this job. So I'll let you get back to writing, which you should be doing every day. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd love to have more topics to talk about, more ideas. I'll talk to you soon. All right, thanks, bye.